We need to talk, y'all, about the sequel to Red Rising, which is Goldenson, because oh my days! It's kind of hard to give you a spoiler-free section since this is the second book in the trilogy, but I'll do my best for y'all. To cut a long story short, in Darrow's mission and pursuit to help his people, the Reds, be free from slavery, he infiltrates the Golds and becomes the Primus, which is like the best student of his respective class. I liked the first book, but it definitely felt that it was lacking in some parts, and heard that the second book was a much better follow-up. And hot diggity, damn it, did the people not lie. Goldenson improved so much upon Red Rising in terms of characters, the writing at moments, the plot, and the pacing. In the beginning, you think since Darrow won at the Institute that things would go swimmingly in this book, and you would be a bloody damn fool to think that. Even though Darrow has plot armor in certain moments, what I love about Goldenson is that it isn't afraid to take Darrow down several notches. For instance, there are multiple moments in which Darrow is humbled. For example, when Severo finds out he's a Red, he forces him to come out with it, even saying that he's distancing himself from someone he called his friend. This builds upon a point another one of his friends, Rock, made early on. Rock got into a disagreement with Darrow, saying that he doesn't open himself up to others, including Severo, Mustang, etc., and that he pushes other people away. Initially, Darrow disagrees with him on this heavily, but as the story progresses, he realizes that Rock was correct. Another case was when Mustang learned of his Red heritage and held a scorcher aimed at him. Ragnar comes to his rescue, even threatening to kill Mustang, and ignores Darrow's command to stop. This is big because from the moment Darrow found Ragnar and freed him, Ragnar's always obeyed Darrow and did things in his best interest. But after the incident at the wall when him, Darrow, and the Howlers got sent underwater, Ragnar in this moment uses that as reason to not listen to him. Because he says that he made that call and that he trusted his life to him, and that got a good amount of the Howlers killed in the process. Essentially saying that Darrow doesn't always know what is best. I also loved getting to see different story beats and learning more about the lore of this world/universe. For instance, the color system plays more of an integral role in this book than the last, with pinks being referred to as pleasure slaves, the whites being priests and serving a significant role in the society, the blues being the pilots and navigationists, and the purples being the creatives such as artists and painters. I loved it because getting to see these different dynamics play out was interesting, and it made this universe feel like a living, breathing, and real place. In Red Rising, a lot of the selling point to me was the violence and the oppressed versus the ruling trope. However, in this book, I almost had something to love in every single chapter. At this point, I'm just gonna run through, ramble, and yap through everything else I love about this book. The chapter with Darrow and the Southern playing the truth game with the scorpions on their hands was so sick. It's effectively poker with just the truth and scorpions on you, and the scorpions only sting once you tell a lie. Couple that with the fact that Octavia never lost, and now you're wetting your pants all of a sudden. Also, the moment when Darrow stood on the Bologna's table in front of everyone and essentially made a mockery of Cassius and his family was a major highlight, and this is when the book really pops off in terms of politics and drama. The only thing I didn't like was how it was expected for me to be okay with the fact that Lorne taught Darrow what he knew, like it was believable. Like the foreshadowing of Lorne as a character was cool, but that out of nowhere drop didn't leave me pleased. Mind you, by this point in the story, Cassius is already an Olympic Knight, which is a super high position, aka a bodyguard to the Sovereign, and before this fight, Darrow never bested Cassius. Matter of fact, it was quite the opposite. Like at least maybe if it was indicated that he would sneak off somewhere during the day or the night, or that he was studying, it would have made the moment a lot more believable and digestible for me. I also love Darrow noting that his new enemies, like Pliny, use weapons such as gossip and betrayal, which was foreign to him, since he was used to his enemies using weapons of steel and openly coming for his neck. Also, how cool was the background on the Ash Lord, who is Aj's dad, who burnt a moon simply because the ruler of that place didn't want to bow and acknowledge Octavia. I can't wait to see them become an active part of Morningstar. I also loved how Mustang became more independent from Darrow in Goldenson, because in the last novel, it felt like she only existed to make him better, and that she had no reason to exist outside of that. But now she's more established, even collecting intel and making moves without needing Darrow every other second, which is pretty cool to witness. Bro, there's so many cool moments in this book. You've got the freeing of Ragnar, one of my favorite characters, and Darrow letting the Obsidians use the daggers, which are only meant to be held by the Golds at the Battle of Mars. Darrow also finding out that Harmony went rogue on Dance and Ares and is now crazy with revenge, even becoming more ruthless like a Gold, was an interesting aspect to read. Or even that conversation that Darrow has with Lorne about the Augustus's history was insane. To cut a long story short, Nero, the Archgovernor, was a nice and well-tempered person in his youth, yet he learned to be cunning and ruthless from his father. He married a Bologna girl, gave a false sense of peace, then sent her head with grapes stuffed in her mouth as a gift to her relatives and a way of getting his lick back for his dad, who by the way was a horrific person as well. There's so many amazing moments that I'm worried I'll miss something. So if you have any things you'd like to hear, let me know in the comments, ideally with a spoiler tag for those who haven't read or finished goldenson. There's two last moments I've been holding back on talking about until now, and these are what made me realize I love reading and the series. The first is when Darrow visits his colony, his home, Lycos, where the series all began. This is where he makes his rounds and visits his mum, and I knew this was going to be emotional for him, but damn, was it just as emotional for me. To put it in perspective, Darrow hadn't been home or seen his mother in years. By the time he visits her, it's nighttime and it's just them chatting. Eventually, when she gets a closer look at him, she realizes it's her son. Darrow was worried that she would treat him differently, but she just said, "Of course I knew it was you, my boy." When I read that, I straight up cried, no lie. I was ugly sobbing, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. I could vividly imagine the scene and being in his shoes. Mind you, the Augustuses won the battle, but there were casualties, friends lost, and ego shattered. Darrow has gone through hell and back, and is literally being hunted down by his universe's supreme leader. Pretty terrifying when you think about it that way. So imagine coming back home, catching up on all you've missed, and the one person who will always love you unconditionally recognizes you, still treats you the same. That's such a beautiful image to me, and I thank piercebrown for this bit. It's the only time I cried reading this book, or any for that matter, but I'm glad it happened. The last moment I held off on talking about was the ending. I presume at this point that you know that you're already in spoiler territory, but seriously, skip this if you haven't read the book yet, because this ending is freaking amazing. Like 10 out of 10. Reading this is how I imagine Game of Thrones fans felt when they read the Red Wedding. When I tell you that those last 5 to 10 pages got me hook, line, and sinker, my jaw was on the floor like I couldn't believe what I had just read. So remember Rock from earlier? Him and Darrow are friends from the last book. He's a poet and a great guy. However, his and Darrow's relationship got strained because of a very stupid thing that Darrow did. He drugged one of his best friends. Yep, I know. It's as bad as it sounds like, and in context, actually even worse. Darrow drugs him in the hopes to blow up the Golds on the ship, committing genocide for Harmony and her faction. On top of that, Darrow comes to his senses after already drugging Rock and decides not to become a suicide bomber, but this choice has its consequences for him. For most of the book, Rock hates his guts, and understandably so. Keep in mind, just before Darrow drugged him, Rock said that Darrow was his most trusted friend and that he would pay for Darrow at the auction to preserve his rights, even willing to go against his house and family, which for a Gold is career suicide. Another key thing to note is that Darrow made an alliance with the Jackal. Remember that guy that was a literal cannibal in Red Rising, sawed off his own hand and killed Pax? Yeah, that's the guy Darrow thought he should team up with, like he was smarter than him. goldenson should have been titled Jackass the Book, because there are some horrific decisions of the main character's part. It's even mentioned at multiple times in the story that he's playing with fire by having this allegiance with him by Mustang and the Telemanuses. The reason I mention all this is because at the end, Darrow has a crowning ceremony. He essentially becomes the heir to Nero and is being cheered on for all his efforts for his house thus far. At this point in the story, I was like, okay, something is up here. Things were going way too well for way too long, and boy, oh boy, I was not prepared for this ending, y'all. Rock comes and gives a box to Darrow as he is told to by Nero. Then Rock tells him that he would have died for Darrow and that he was his friend. This was when I realized it was the beginning of the end. Darrow noticed a pink with an odd behavior serving Lorne, and then he realized that pink and another were both Lilith and Vixus. And when I read those names, I knew with 100,000% of breath in my chest that Darrow was absolutely screwed. By the time he notices, it's too late, and these heathens, Rock, the Jackal, and Cassius, go nuts along with Aja and Antonia and unleash hell on the rest of the people present there. Antonia switches sides again, like I knew the slag would, but this time she shot her own mother in the neck and her sister Victra in the spine. I hope Antonia dies the worst possible death in Morningstar for this alone. Keep in mind, Victra essentially had a whole redemption arc saying she's not her family, had Darrow vouch for her, and she loved him, explaining her actions as to why she went against her family. So imagine how horrifying it is for me to read that she drags her dying body to Darrow with the words she says to him being, "I didn't know," in her last moment before death. That's all she wanted to communicate, that she was loyal to the very end. I hate Antonia with my whole soul. Lorne also dies in the section. I'm not as sad regarding him since he's lived a full life, but it is melancholic in a way because Darrow dragged him out of retirement back into this life of violence, even admitting that this is directly his fault. After this, the Jackal mentions that he knew Darrow was red and rubs it in his face. Then the Jackal has a heart-to-heart with his dad, and damn, this family is messed up in the worst way. We all knew Nero shunned his son, but Adrius brought that to the forefront here. This was his last attempt at getting his acknowledgement and love from his father. And this D-bag Nero has the goal to say stuff like, "I should have strangled you in your crib." Oh my days, what did I just read? Him belittling Adrius tips him over the edge, and he admits one of the most heinous things in fictional history. He reveals that Claudius, his dad's favorite of the family, was set up by himself. He went on to mention how he borrowed money from Nero to secure his future, only then to use that exact same money to bribe Canis to disrespect and sleep with Claudius's girl, prompting them to duel. I don't care what anyone says, that is pure evil. To bribe your rival house member to kill your older brother should have you a first line ticket straight to hell. I felt like I needed to scrub my eyeballs after reading that. Then after, Nero rightfully retaliates, even with the wild strangling line, and that's when the Jackal mentions how much of a good boy he was to him, always obeying him and doing everything for him. He then realized it was all useless, as it would never garner him that attention and love that he so desperately craved. So he does a chant to himself, essentially freeing himself of any sanity or morality, and shoots his father in the head, point blank. Oh my days! The twists just keep on coming, and how are they gonna top this one? Well, remember that box Rock gave Darrow earlier? Yeah, it had Fitchner/Ares' head in there, who we only found out that partway through this book that Fitchner was Ares and that Severo is half gold and half red. Ares was meant to be a beacon of light for the revolution, and somehow these bastards managed to kill him, behead him, and cut out his eyes and stuff his mouth with grapes, parallel to what Nero did back in the past to the Bellonas. Goodness gracious, when I finished this book, I felt like I actually needed therapy of some kind. I didn't know who to trust, which the betrayals happened quite a lot, sometimes overdoing it. Legit, for a solid minute, I had my head in my hands, contemplating what I had just read, and thinking to myself, I need that third book. As of this video, I have Morningstar, and I'm up to the second chapter of that book. So no spoilers, y'all. If Morningstar is just as good as goldenson, or even better, then boy, oh boy, am I going to have myself a mighty good time. I'm also in the era now where a lot of my uni work and assignments are due. But after the 5th of June, y'all should be seeing a lot more content from me regularly. I thank y'all for the support, because posting once every month got scary for me, especially balancing that with my own life and work. It really is reassuring as a content creator. I hope y'all enjoyed listening to me yap about this gem of a book. Thank y'all for watching, and I'll see you in whatever I post next. This is Black Sugar Lemon, out.